Every Mother's Day, we honor our moms. They deserve it. It's one of the toughest jobs out there, but perhaps also one of the most rewarding. Joining me now is Pastor Abe Block. You're retired, but you're still a pastor. Thank you for joining us here at Bridge City News. We love having you here.
It's good. I love being here. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, so Abe, we were talking a little bit before this started, and you come from a very large family. There's 9 of you, siblings, I guess,
Yes.
right? So you saw your mom raise a house full of kids, and then between you and your current wife, you have how many kids and grandkids?
Well, between my wife and I, and it's a second wife, we both lost our first spouses to cancer. And so it's a second marriage, and between us, we have 6 children, 26 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren, and another one coming in June.
Okay, so you've seen your spouses raise children, and you see what they go through. So, and I'm also certain that you've given tons of sermons over the years about Mother's Day. So what kind of messages do you tell people about mom?
Well, that's exactly a challenge. We were talking about that ahead of time. Actually, on Mother's Day, we should be having the moms responding. And since you're a mom, I may challenge you a little bit later on as to how things work. But Mother's Day is crucial. And the challenge with Mother's Day, I think, often is in our society today, we often have the question asked, are you only a mom? And our society comes from the perspective that being only a mother just doesn't cut it, which is unfortunate. And I sometimes think that moms are so important. I remember one of my daughters, when she came home from school, even when she was in high school already, one of the things she needed desperately was when she came home, she needed somebody to listen to her day. And if my wife hadn't have been there, so for the first half hour when she got home from school, my wife sat down with her, okay, talk to me. Or they were in the kitchen together, talk to me. It's all about relationships, and you said it. It's such an incredibly important responsibility. It's not a job. And I remember I traveled with a quartet for many years, full-time ministry and evangelism, and we traveled halfway around the world. And I often got asked by people, does your wife work?
Oh, wow.
And I said, wow, does she ever work? And I would roll off, because she was a stay-at-home mom, I would roll off all the things she does.
Yeah.
No, we didn't mean that. We meant, does she work outside of the home? See, there's the
or does she have a real job, right?
Does she have a real job?
Yeah, there
That's
you
go. a key one. And I, as I think about that, I think about mums in the home and mums working. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against mums working, okay? You're working, all right? And you're a mom. But the problem is, look at the public system. We took God and prayer out of the schools, and what happened? We've had more shootings in the last years than we ever had before. What if we would take mom out of the home? I think it does have an effect. And so I'm not opposed to moms working at all, but I'm just thinking in terms of when we remove them. Are there good babysitters? Absolutely. Are there good daycares? Absolutely. But they're not mom.
Absolutely. And it's an important role, like we were talking about. Now, there's an old saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, right? So to what degree do moms influence their children to become all that they can become? This is
Well, again, I go back to what we just said, the hand that rocks the cradle. So my question is, who's rocking the cradle? Is it mom, or is it daycare, or is it a babysitter? Because I think, in a sense, the statement is very true. Moms influence and impact their children at an early age very much. And so I think it's important that they have that relationship. There's a certain security in having that one person at that age. And there's confidence in that. And so how many moms have taught and trained from an early age prime ministers and presidents and CEOs and people like that? Absolutely, I think they They influence and impact, and that leads to.
Now, being a good role model, of course, is important, but the reality is, as parents, we all fail at times, right? So how should moms handle that when they fail, and especially if our kids know it? How to deal with that?
Well, 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. Now, that talks about sin. That's not failure. There's a difference between the two. We all fail. And my feeling is if and when a mom is there with her child from youth, there's a relationship. And relationships are so very important. In that relationship, I would expect that the mother is also letting the child know the world is not perfect. People are not perfect. That child grows up with that syndrome. So I think it only fair that when a mother fails in that sense, the best thing to do is to live with integrity and communicate with that child. See, I am not perfect either. Will you forgive me?
Oh,
I think statements like that to children are extremely important. I remember I had a run-in with my son just before he left off for school. And I didn't have many run-ins with him because he was that kind of a guy. It wasn't his dad, it was him. He was just that kind of a boy. Anyway, I called him at school in the middle of the morning. The secretary said, he's in class. I said, I don't care. This is his dad. I need to apologize to my son now.
oh, wow.
And, that had an incredible influence in his life, I think. So I think parents need to be free and open with that. Don't be afraid. They're not going to run away from you. They won't.
Yeah.
They will appreciate your honesty and your integrity.
Yeah, it's a learning opportunity for
Absolutely.
them too. Yeah. Now, as a mom, of course, I know that we're all way too hard on ourselves. But is it okay if the laundry is piling up or if you got impatient with your kids today?
Absolutely. That's my short answer. Absolutely. But the question begs, what's the reason? What's the motivation behind it? Am I lazy and not doing the laundry? That's an excuse. That's not a reason. I told you about my daughter who needed to communicate. If my wife was in the middle of doing laundry and my daughter walked in the door after school, she dropped the laundry to take time for the daughter. That's legit.
Wow. And what a message that would send to your daughter too, that she's a priority.
She's important.
Right? Yeah.
She's important.
Yeah.
And my daughter, now that same daughter, she has 10 children living here in Lethbridge. I was intrigued. When my first wife died, I lived with them for a little bit. And I was intrigued by the fact that some of her kids were still small. And when they came running and with some challenges or something, she would get down on her haunches, eye level to talk to them. See, to me, stuff like that is key. Because the child feels, I'm a somebody, I'm important.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, stay-at-home moms and moms who work, I've been a bit of both
Yes, you have.
throughout my life. Obviously, there's stress issues that come with both. So what would you say to moms who need a break?
Well, you see, the break comes where? A working mom needs a break because she's trying a full-time job over here and a full-time job at home. You can't do 2 full-time jobs in a day. It's impossible. So something has to give.
Exactly.
The flip side is a stay-at-home mom is there with the children day after day after day. She needs a break from that. So for those people, I would say, Mr. Husband, let your wife, I don't care if she leaves the house or not, but on the weekend when you're not working, take the kids. Take them somewhere. Give her space away from the children. For moms that are working, that's a challenge because they're only home such a short time, so you don't want to take the kids away.
Yeah.
She needs a break from the work issue.
Right.
So those are challenging questions, and I don't have solutions for them, but I think everybody, the mom and the dad need to work that out.
Right.
I really think, and the kids as they grow, if the parents are really communicating and have a relationship, they can walk with them through this stuff as they learn. And the children can begin to appreciate and do something themselves to help their mom get a break.
Right. And of course, the guilt trip will usually come in too.
Oh,
Not
wow.
necessarily from the kids, but a lot of times moms feel guilty if you want to take a break from your kids.
Well, how did you handle it?
Felt guilty.
Yeah.
I spent years
See,
feeling
there
guilty.
you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no need for the guilt.
Right.
It's a matter of working it out to the satisfaction of both parents and the children.
Well, that kind of leads me to another question, because that's provided there are two parents there. So what about single moms? I mean, that's a challenge. The challenge is also finding a good male role model for the child as well.
Well, like I said before, I traveled with a quartet in evangelism for many, many years, which meant we were gone for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, which meant my wife for that time was a single mom. Now, as far as my son, my oldest is a boy, as far as my son was concerned, he got involved. The church had an incredible program for Boys Club. And one of the fellows that was in charge, one of the leaders, also happened to be a fairly good friend. You know, he took special interest in my son when I was gone. He became a male role model to my son till he was 13 years old, and then I stayed home and took a different job. That's one way to do it. For a single mom, find people. Don't be afraid to have male friends. I know sometimes that's a problem, but don't be afraid to have male friends who can be a male model to your children without creating, a problem. Oh, now what's going on in that household,
Yeah.
And that's a challenge.
It is a challenge.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
But it is possible, for example, Big Brothers.
Absolutely.
We have organizations like that, okay?
Yeah.
But the thing about all of this is, moms, when they're home, have an influence, positive and negative. It's the same with when you find a big brother or somebody like that,
Okay.
and the same with finding babysitters and daycares. Try and find people that have a positive outlook on life. As a believer, I would say, if possible, obviously Christians, but that's not always possible. But at least people that have a positive outlook on life, because to me that's important, because they're going to influence either positive or negative.
That's right. And it might take some time to
Absolutely.
find that person.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Mother's Day in the few minutes that we have left. So this Sunday, of course, is Mother's Day. That's
Yes.
why we're talking about moms right now. One thing that's really on my mind, of course, right now is COVID-19
Yes.
and the isolation going on. And I know with my mom, she's not in a long-term care facility or anything, but she's in a seniors block, and they're really strict on who comes and
they
goes.
are.
Obviously, my
Yes.
mom has an immunodeficiency as well, and so she is very cognizant about what's going on right now. So, as a result, we didn't get to spend my son's birthday with her. We didn't get to spend Easter with her. I handed her flowers through the window of my car and the card. So now it's coming up on Mother's Day, same thing. This is a challenge. How do we spend time with mom on Mother's Day when they're in isolation?
Well, I'll tell you, on Facebook, there have been a lot of suggestions. I don't know if you've seen them. A lot of children, young children going to see their grandparents, along with their mothers going to see the are going to where these people are. And they're doing all kinds of fun stuff outside in the parking lot.
Right.
They
Yes.
phone ahead of time, tell them, come to the window at this point in time. And I know one family, 3 children, went into the parking lot was kind of in the center and the buildings were around. That grandmother phoned everybody else in there. And when these kids came, they started doing certain dances, and everybody was looking out of the windows and watching them dance and dancing in their own rooms.
Yeah.
We have to find a way. I don't know if I have suggestions, except a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Make phone calls.
Yeah.
If they're on I was going to say Instagram, not Instagram. whatever it
Social
is.
media,
Social media,
Facebook, or
any kind
even-
of social
Yeah.
media. Get them on there, communicate.
Right.
There are still 8 of us left in my family Just last Friday, we were on Zoom, all of us, all 8
That's
of us.
amazing.
So there you go.
Yeah.
There's this Zoom thing, and I know that my sister, for example, does this with all of her children and grandchildren every week. She goes on Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, there are neat things that you can do to keep communication opening. And I know that some of my friends who have parents in a home have made bread, have made meals, and made different. They bring it to the front.
Yeah.
And the people inside take it and take it to them. You know, there are so many ways with our modern technology that we can have a relationship. We need to do that.
Yeah, I love how more and more seniors are getting more techie as well. My
Yes.
mom isn't. She's still not on the bandwagon with the cell phones or the laptop. So that's a challenge. So maybe
Yes.
she'll see this and she'll be like, oh, maybe I should.
And this might be the time when she does, just
never
for the
know.
sake of getting rid of her loneliness
You
and stuff
never
like that.
know. Pastor Abe, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
I have loved being here, Jeanette. God bless you and all of us in the midst of this COVID-19.